Welcome to part 2 of the father wound, where I help you understand how the early relationships we had with our fathers or with our male guardians, how these relationships affect how we see the world, how we perceive ourselves, our self-esteem, our self-worth, and also how we relate with others in terms of relationships, the kind of people that we are drawn to or attracted to, and how we see life in general and what we think of ourselves. So if you're new here, welcome to Coaching with Wangari Migwi. This is a platform where I help you understand how your early childhood experiences affect how you see the world, affect the way you react, how you experience the world around you, and how you even think of yourself and how you think or perceive others. So if you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you find this content helpful, you can also share it to people whom you feel could really use this so that they can understand themselves better. So thank you and welcome. So maybe you're wondering, how come the early relationship you had with your father or your male guardian affects how you see things today, how you react with others, and how you attract other people, how you behave in relationships, and even how you even see yourself. So what happens when you're growing up is that your subconscious mind, it stores everything. It never forgets. The subconscious mind is that part of your mind that keeps a record of how you feel when things happen to you, even if it happened way back in your childhood, the way you felt, the way your mind perceived the entire situation. Your subconscious mind takes note of all that. So the mind is divided into two parts, that is the subconscious and the conscious mind. The conscious mind is that part of your mind that you're aware of. Like if you want to lift up your hand, if you want to move your leg, that part is the conscious mind. The subconscious mind, it sort of takes the back seat. It just watches, but sometimes it's in control. The subconscious mind comes in control when you are triggered, for example, or when you do things without thinking. So the subconscious mind is that part of your brain that operates in autopilot. For example, you can get up and go lock the door without even being aware of what you're doing, and then come back and sit down and then ask yourself whether you have locked the door, and then you get up and go to confirm that you have indeed locked the door. So when you are locking the door, it's like you are operating in autopilot. You are doing it, but your mind was not really there, but it was carrying out the action of locking the door. So that is how the subconscious mind works. And the subconscious mind is that part of your mind that it comes into action when, like I said, when you're triggered. For example, if something happens, a certain situation occurs, maybe someone steps on you and all of a sudden you just snap, and then you just insult them, you become so rude, and then you wonder like, oh my god, why did I just react the way I did? Why did I insult that person? All they did was just step on me. So that reaction came from your subconscious mind, and it was reacting to maybe a similar experience that you had experienced in the past that you have never really dealt with. So it came into action to react. So you are in your mind, you are not even reacting to this person or to whatever has happened. You are reacting to what happened in your past. That is how the subconscious mind works. Another simple example of how the subconscious mind works is, let's say you're walking down the road and then you come across an elephant crossing the road. Okay. I don't know why you will see an elephant crossing the road. It's just an example, so just bear with me. So you see an elephant crossing the road, and okay, you make nothing of it. You go about your day as if nothing happened. And then at night when you sleep, you dream of the elephant that you had seen. So because somewhere at the back of your mind it registered an elephant, and then it comes up in your dreams. So that is how the subconscious mind works. It's always watching, it's always recording. Okay, so back to the father wound. So now that you understand how the subconscious mind works, you need to know that the subconscious mind, it loves what feels familiar and it is scared of what feels new. And this is why the kind of relationship you had with your father or your male caregiver affects the relationships that you will likely attract as an adult, because you'll be more drawn and more attracted to those people who create an environment that feels familiar. If you had a chaotic childhood, if you are always arguing with your dad, if he was always abusive or violent towards you, you're going to be attracted to a person that is violent, is abusive, that creates a chaotic environment in the relationship, because the subconscious mind loves what is familiar. But why do our minds work like this? I mean, there has to be a missing link, something strong that connects the relationship we had when we were growing up with our male guardians or our fathers, and how that dynamic is affecting what we are attracted to today as adults. The subconscious mind, again, the subconscious mind, it sort of creates a story. Okay, so back in your mind, there is a story that you tell yourself without even being aware of it. And that is what the subconscious mind does. It creates a story based on the experiences we had as we were growing up. And this story that we have about ourselves is what affects how we attract other people in our life as adults. To help you understand better, let me give you an example of the experience of one of my coaching clients, how the story she has been telling herself from what happened in her childhood, how it has affected the way she sees herself and the people whom she's attracted to today as an adult. So I won't say her name, of course. Let's call her Eve, like Eve from the Bible. So when Eve was growing up, at around 10 years old, her father left. Maybe things didn't work out between the mom and the dad. So the father just up and left one day and never looked back, never looked for the family, never took care of them. And so this was really painful. Can you imagine? As in, your father just walks away and never looks back. So in Eve's mind, she developed this story about herself, that she was unlovable and that people would always walk away from her. So as an adult, she has been attracted to men who are emotionally unavailable, who are not willing to give her the love that she deserves or desires. So every time these men walk out of her life, it confirms or it strengthens the story she already has about herself, that she's unlovable, that people will always walk away from her. Okay, and even when Eve is, when she happens to meet a nice guy, she somehow manages to ruin things. She makes trouble, finds way to bring up issues, so that this person will eventually just snap and say, like, you're too much, and walk away from her, so that it can reaffirm or confirm what she already knows about herself, what she believes about herself, that she's unlovable and that people will always walk away from her. So that is how the early relationships we have with our fathers can affect our adult relationships today. So maybe you're thinking, well, if she shouldn't have developed that story about herself, because what happened when she was young had nothing to do with her. Maybe the problem was between the mother and the father, so she shouldn't have developed this idea that she was unlovable and that people would walk away from her. What you need to understand is that when this happened, the mind of Eve was the mind of a 10-year-old, not an adult. So looking back, it seems ridiculous to think that she would see herself as unlovable and that people would walk away from her. But at the time when she was only 10 years old, that story made sense. And without healing, without doing the work to confront yourself, the story that you've been telling yourself, to say that just because you think that is true doesn't make it the truth. Okay, so that is why I always tell you guys, healing is very important, because you might find that there are things about yourself that you believe or think based on what happened to you, but they don't really make sense right now. But there's no way you can recognize them. You cannot recognize those limiting thoughts or those negative ideas or that negative story about yourself that you believe to be true, that is actually not true. That is what healing is all about. It's about looking back to the story that you have believed about yourself for such a long time, based on the experiences that happened to you as you are growing up, in relation to the to the relationship you had with your father or your male caregiver as you are growing up. So healing is about looking back to that story about yourself that you believe and questioning it, if it is indeed really true about yourself, if how things happened according to your mind back then, if it makes sense. Okay, and that is why a lot of people avoid healing, because nobody likes to face their inner demons. Nobody likes to go back to those deep dark places from their childhood that they would rather just bury away and forget about, without realizing that those experiences that you try to hide away, to just forget about, to bury deep at the back of your mind and pretend they never happened, those experiences are the ones that have the most control over you, over your subconscious mind, without even you being aware of it. So healing is all about just going back to that place that you're trying to avoid, and just feeling the emotions and looking at the situation now with an adult mind, and understanding that maybe some of the things that happened to you were not your fault and they shouldn't define who you are. Okay, like in the case of Eve, so she shouldn't go around thinking that she's unlovable and that people will always leave her just because her dad left. Eve should understand that her dad walked away on his own. It was his own choice, and it had nothing to do with her. It wasn't because she was unlovable, and so she shouldn't walk around with this burden on her shoulders, thinking that people will always leave her, no one will ever love her the way she is. And that is what healing is all about. It's about just going back and confronting that story that you've believed, and knowing that the experiences you had, even though they were unfair, some of them had even nothing to do with you, so you shouldn't allow them to affect who you are and what you do and how you think and who you attract in your present life today as an adult. So I really hope this was helpful to you, and it has really made you understand something about the father wound, and how the early relationship you had with your father or your male guardian, how that relationship could potentially be affecting your relationships today as an adult. Yeah, so let me know in the comments below if this was helpful. Yeah, and if you know anyone who would really use this information, please kindly share it with them so that they can understand themselves better and also begin to heal, so that they can live better quality life. Yeah, and as usual, I really appreciate your support, so don't forget to like and subscribe so that anytime I post new content, you're always updated and you're never left behind. And before I forget, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram at Coaching with Wangari Migwi. Yeah, and so the next video, I'll still be talking about the father wound, where we will discuss the most common types of fathers that majority of us grew up with, and how the relationships we had with them, how they affect our current relationships as adults. So stay tuned for more.